Welcome to a brand new TV show spoiler review here at Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Zuberg, and today we are talking about the season 4 finale of the Amazon Prime Video show Invincible, episode 8 of season 4, titled Don't Leave Me Hanging Here. This could be a full spoiler review, guys, here. So my name is Max Zuberg. Welcome back to Max Talks Movies. Before I get this full again, review here. This is going to be full spoilers. If you've not checked out the episode that released on Wednesday, April 22nd, go watch it. It's a 52-minute episode. Then come back here because I'm going to be talking about the spoilers of season 4, what is set up for season 5, all of the above. So welcome in, like the video, subscribe, and let's get started talking Invincible season 4, episode 8. And I absolutely loved this episode. This was an episode that I think is extremely ballsy because it's unlike any of the Invincible finales that we have gotten so far, which have been very action heavy, have been the season finales of 1, 2, and 3, right? You have Mark versus Nolan in that Omni-Man Invincible fight in season 1. You have Sterling K. Brown's character versus Mark in season 2. And then you have Mark and Eve versus Conquest in season 3. Those finales have those small character moments, but mostly revolve around the epic action around it and what the consequences of those actions were, right? This episode doesn't, because last week's episode had all of the action. It was the official Viltrumite War that was on display last week. And I think a lot of people, including myself, did think we were going to get some fights between some Viltrumites and our heroes on Earth in this episode. But it was actually the complete opposite. If I'm not mistaken, the only legit action sequence that took place in this episode was the scene where D.A. Sinclair was trying to bring Robot and Monster Girl back from that dimension, and it did not go well. There was this octopus character that was killing some characters. Other than that, there was no action in the episode. The real only action in this episode was seeing the PTSD of Mark after surviving the war last week. And we learned obviously that it's been 10 months or so, I believe, from when they left Earth to now them returning to Earth. And this is a very quiet character moment episode. They do PTSD. They talk about abortions in this episode. A lot of really mature themes in this episode. And I think they did it extremely well. So obviously, they send Oliver back to that home planet where Alan is to get, medically checked. But because they think they're going to Earth, Mark, Zoe, and Nolan go back to Earth to make sure there's no more Viltrumites. And there's shockingly no Viltrumites. But the whole episode, Mark is getting, as he's talking to each character in the show, he visualizes them dying at the hands of Throg. I did think, honestly, they threw me for a loop with Debbie. The first time you see the PTSD is with Debbie, and you see Throg just rip her to shreds, and you're like, oh my God, did that just happen? And then it didn't happen. They do that with Cecil. They do that with Eve. They do it with his at college. So I think they did a really good job talking about mental health, PTSD, as it pertains to Mark. Because I think what was the scary part is what you really felt for Mark. Even though they didn't physically see the Viltrumites there, they know with a snap of their fingers, the Viltrumites can just show up and destroy Earth. And really, in his eyes, he has nothing, he can't help whatsoever. And that feeling where he has all of these superpowers, all of these responsibilities to Earth, and he just feels helpless, which I felt was really emotional, where he just felt like if Throg comes back, I'm going to try my best to help, but I really am no help to the situation. He could barely compete with Throg in that fight last week, obviously, once again this week. And I think he knows if the Viltrumites come back, he's helpless. And the PTSD of the war and how many people died and how easily people died messed him up. And even though he will outlive all these people he's thinking about on Earth, he cares deeply for so many people. And I thought that was really well done. Obviously, the stuff with Adam Eve I thought was very emotional. Where Mark is so also done just leaving her behind to do these actions, but then we realized that honestly, you would think Eve would have either a kid by now or at least have a huge bump showing that she's pregnant. She did not. I was like, she probably had an abortion. That is what happened. Eve gives this very emotional speech to Mark, where she's like, I was pregnant right before you gone. The last thing I wanted you to think about was not going to that war and staying here with me. And I wanted you to, all of that stuff. And then she realized how lonely she was. Her whole family situation is not the greatest. Never knew if Mark was going to come back or not, and didn't want to welcome a kid into the world where maybe her dad isn't there. And also, just for her sake, she just felt very lonely, depressed, all of those things. And it wasn't like this was about a debate about abortion. Mark didn't come and said, "What the hell was that? I wanted a kid." It was very emotional, sweet. And Mark was really just there for her in that moment. And we see a lot of moments between the two of them where she just needs to be there for Mark. But this was a particular episode where he really needed to be there for Eve. And it really woke him up and made him realize, like, I can't just go on these missions for 10 months again to leave you alone here. And, she even jokes and said, I wish I could be the person going off for a couple months and trying to save the world. And why, that it always has to be him. I thought they did such a beautiful job doing that. Then we get the Debbie and Nolan stuff, where Debbie once again not really happy with the apology that Nolan sets again. But the advice we do learn, my only negative though with the episode was they completely dropped Paul and Debbie off screen. They were very close together at the before everyone left for the war. And then they come back, and Paul and Debbie have broken up. Debbie says that they just live in different worlds. I think they could have made it work. And I'm not a fan that it was a major plot line in this season was Debbie and Paul. And then to get kind of completely dropped with kind of like one or two lines of dialogue, that was my biggest negative. But again, that's not going to kill the episode. I still thought it was a fantastic episode. But she has a conversation with Paul, and Paul basically tells her, you why is it so crazy for you to go to this world and be there for Oliver? Um, like that is your world now. Go to these alien planets, seeing aliens. Like this is kind of just your world now. So Debbie makes the plan to go to the planet with Alan on it, with Omni-Man to see Oliver. Because we know after all those battles with Mark in the first couple seasons, she was by his side the whole time. And she says a parent has to be by his side in this moment. And that's why she wants to go to see Oliver. That was a very awkward scene between Debbie and Omni-Man and Mark just being there like, what just happened? I thought that was such a good moment. We see Cecil have also had a confrontation with Nolan in this episode at the spot where Nolan and Mark fought in season one. And Nolan says he apologizes and he almost died trying to save everyone. And then Cecil brought up a fair point, which was, how about try to not die or almost die 2,230 times? That's how many people did die when Nolan and Mark fought that day, and how many people Nolan killed on that fateful day. And it's true, like Nolan, I still love the fact that no one has welcomed him back in open arms on Earth. Like, sure, he's trying to save the world, but he shouldn't just be getting a slap on the wrist for what he did. And everyone has a very unique and different feeling towards him. Cecil, still very afraid of him. I thought that was a great one-on-one scene, but the true ending was this huge cliffhanger in this episode where we get the confrontation. Yes, Mark is not visualizing Throg this time. Throg is there in flesh and blood. Mark tries to fight him. Obviously, that does not work. And Throg offers a truce to Mark, which is you destroyed our planet. So we now, as Viltrumites, there's only 40 of us, and we need to grow our population again. And based on the success that Nolan had with you, we are going to live on Earth. There's going to be no fighting, no killing any of the Earth people or the humans on Earth, but they're going to live, breed, and make more Viltrumites. And they're going to live among them and all of these things. And again, Mark cannot, there could be no exposing them, right? They showed all the different Viltrumite agents just among the people. And he said, you're never going to know which of us is going to be a Viltrumite, which of us is just a regular person. But Earth is safe and all of those things. And Mark at first, makes this very rational decision is no, living among us, how would I let you do that? And then Mark bites the bullet and basically saves Earth by allowing this truce between him and the Viltrumites, where he can let them breed on Earth, let them stay on Earth, but there's no more fighting, and Earth as a whole is safe, which means all of his loved ones are safe. And Mark, it is a life-altering decision that he has to make with the snap of his fingers. Um, and Throg says, this really isn't a choice, but it truly is a choice. I kind of liked when he said that to Mark. And Mark was, had his fist, he was ready to fight, but he knows there's really no shot here. The only answer he had was to let them stay on Earth. Um, Really emotional scene. Stephen Yun just delivered, especially him and Jillian Jacobs, I think in particular, were great in this episode. But Yun in the scene with Lee Pace was just excellent. And you felt for him. You really did feel like he was handcuffed and kind of he couldn't start fighting them or Earth would be destroyed. Because we learned that even though they're setting up this tracker so they know when the Viltrumites are on Earth, it will take 2 weeks for the coalition to come and save the day. But again, by the time that would happen, Earth would probably be destroyed. So there really is no parameters for this. So that's where we leave Earth. The post-credit scene is Alan obviously running the coalition, and he gets this message from Thetis, which says he created this potion that we know he created, but he said the thing that Nolan doesn't know that it also can kill humans, and that he needs to do whatever it takes to extinguish the Viltrumites. Now we know that they're on Earth, all of the Viltrumites. The question is, will Alan unleash this toxin, which won't just kill all of the Viltrumites, but more likely kill everyone on Earth? And is that a pill worth swallowing for Alan? Because obviously he is extremely loyal to Mark and Nolan and that family, while clearly Thetis, I think, respected them, but was using them to extinguish and use them as weapons more than as fighters and soldiers and allies. So that's relief things. I thought this was a phenomenal episode. As I was watching, I was like, oh, people aren't going to like that this is no action involved. I loved that the show took a step back, really focused on character, put you in the mindset of Mark following such a brutal war, all these little interconnected characters and moments I thought was beautiful. I was very emotional in this episode, and I was on the edge of my seat with that confrontation at the end between Throg and Mark. So I'm really excited based on what we knew. There was an early renewal date for this show. So we know there's going to be a season 5, and we also know that it's going to be coming out probably same time next year. So we'll probably stay tuned towards the end of the year. We'll probably get that fun teaser trailer where they make fun of everyone waiting for the show. And then more likely back here in 2027 in probably March or April with the 5th season of Invincible. So I'm dying for this 5th season. What an emotional ride. I think this is probably the best season of the show, if not the second best. I do think this was a better season than seasons 2 and 3. I think it's up in the air if it's better than 1. But I love season 4. It's clearly one of my, if not my favorite show of all time. So I am dying for the next season. What are you guys' thoughts on Invincible season 4, the finale? Let me know down in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, guys. It would really mean a lot to me to get to 500 subscribers as quickly as possible. And I'll see you guys in another video very soon.